I came home from work to find my brother and his wife inside my house, talking about renovations once it's theirs. Then my parents demanded I sign the house over to him. I refused and pressed charges. I never thought I would be fighting my family over a house I bought with my own money, but here we are. I wish I could make, but they actually tried to steal my house. Let's start from the beginning. I, 38 male, grew up in a house where the dynamic was clear. My older brother, Derek, 41, male, was the golden child, the firstborn, the heir to everything. My parents never tried to hide this fact. They would say Derek will inherit the family home, the money, all of it, right in front of me. Their reasoning, he was born first. That was literally it. I was always the afterthought, the one who was supposed to just accept that Derek got the best of everything. For years, I watched it happen. Derek got the bigger bedroom, the car for his 16th birthday college, fully paid for. I got student loans and a bus pass. My buddy Marcus has seen this play out since we were in middle school. Your parents act like Derek hung the moon and you are just some random neighbor kid, he would tell me. He was not wrong. The pattern continued into adulthood. When Derek got married to his wife Vanessa, my parents gave them a $30,000 gift for the down payment on their first house. When I asked for similar help 4 years later, I got a lecture about fiscal responsibility and bootstraps. Derek's career path was equally blessed. After college, my dad called in favors to get him a management position at his friend's construction company. No experience required. Meanwhile, I started at the bottom rung of an IT, working my way up through certifications and late night. Dad never even asked what I did for a living until I had been doing it for 3 years. Fast forward to last year. I finally saved enough to buy my own place after years of busting my ass. A 3-bedroom in a neighborhood I liked. The house needed work, but I spent 6 months getting it exactly how I wanted it. New kitchen, refinished hardwoods, converted garage into a home gym. This place was 100% mine, bought with money I earned through 15 years of 60-hour weeks and aggressive saving. I felt like I had finally done something that was just for me. My name on a deed, my rules, my life. No family strings attached. At least that is what. About 2 months after moving in, my parents invited themselves over for dinner. Dad inspected everything. He was a building code inspector, making little comments about amateur work on my renovation. Mum kept asking if I was lonely in such a big house for just one person. After dinner, they sat me down with these serious expressions I remembered from childhood lectures. Son, my dad said, your mother and I have been discussing your house situation. We think it would make more sense for Derek to take over the property. I just stared at him. Excuse me, Mum jumped in. We are just trying to keep the family assets properly managed. Derek has children who need the space. You are single. It is the practical solution. What the hell are you talking about? This is my house, I said. I bought it with my money. There is no situation to discuss. Dad leaned forward using his intimidation pose that worked when I was 10, but not anymore. We are not trying to take it from you. This is about family unity. Derek would of course let you stay here until you find a smaller place. Before I could respond, Derek walked in from the kitchen where he had apparently been listening the whole time. He had that smug look he has had since we were kids. Do not take it personally, bro, he said. It is just about what makes sense for the family. You do not really need all this space. I stood up. This is my home. I am not signing anything over to you or anyone else. End of discussion. The temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. My parents exchanged that look they always share when I do not fall in line. They left shortly after the evening, clearly ruined for them. I spent that night pacing my house, half convinced I had hallucinated the entire conversation. What kind of family asks you to give up your house? What kind of brother thinks that is a reasonable request? The entitlement was so absurd, I actually laughed out loud alone in my kitchen at midnight, trying to process what had just happened. The next morning, I called Marcus, the only person who truly understood my family dynamic, because he had witnessed it firsthand for decades. Dude, I think my family has lost their minds, I told him, recounting the previous night's conversation. Honestly, I am not even surprised. Marcus said, your brother has always thought he was entitled to everything you have. Remember when he tried to take your first car? I did remember. I had saved for 2 years working at a grocery store to buy a used car when I was 18. My brother Derek totaled his second car, the one my folks had bought him after he wrecked the first one, and almost immediately started dropping hints that he needed mine now, something about his job requiring it. And the worst part, my parents actually took his side. The only reason that car's still mine is because I flat out told them I'd quit college and move to the opposite coast if they kept pushing. No, this is different, I told Marcus. We're talking about my house now. How could they possibly think I'd just hand it over? Because you've never actually stood up to them, Marcus shot back. You complain, you argue, but at the end of the day, you always show up for the holidays. You always play the good son. They're counting on you folding again. And damn it, he was right. For years, decades, honestly, I'd swallowed my resentment just to keep the family peace. But this time, I told myself, things would be different. After that visit, everything spiraled faster than I expected. My mom started bombing my phone with guilt-trip texts. Families supposed to stick together. Derek's kids deserve stability. Why am I being so selfish? My dad, meanwhile, kept calling with these speeches about honoring the family name and thinking beyond myself. Then my Aunt Diane jumped in. My mom's sister, just as entitled as the rest of them. Your cousin gave his starter home to his older brother when he got married. That's what family does, she lectured. I pointed out that her son's house was a straight-up gift from his grandfather, so it wasn't really the same thing. She hung up on me right then. But Derek was on another level entirely. He'd just show up uninvited, dragging his wife Vanessa along, a woman who radiates permanent, let me speak to your manager energy. The two of them would wander through my house, pointing at things, talking about what they'd change once it became theirs. Vanessa actually tapped on my living room wall one time and said, "This should come down. We'd want open concept for entertaining." The first few times I tried to stay civil, reminded them this was my house. I wasn't selling it, wasn't handing it to anyone. They'd just nod and smile like I was a kid mid-tantrum. "We get that you are attached to the place," Vanessa would say, dripping with condescension. "Change is hard." Their kids, 8 and 10, both spoiled rotten, tore through my house like wild animals, jumping on furniture, tracking mud across my new floors, messing with my things, while Derek and Vanessa did absolutely nothing to stop them. "Kids will be kids," Derek would say every time I called it out, like watching my property get destroyed was unstoppable of nature. Then came that Saturday. I got back from the gym and found Derek's SUV parked in my driveway, his whole family already inside my... They'd used the spare key I'd stupidly left under a rock for emergency. "Oh, we were just in the neighborhood," Derek said, casual as could be, while his kids were literally drawing on my dining room wall with markers. "Get your kids and get out." Vanessa gave me that signature look of practiced outrage. "They're just playing. Don't be so uptight." That same afternoon, I took my key back and changed all the locks. Marcus came by to help and couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Man, this is entitlement on a whole new level," he said, while we installed the new deadbolt. "Document everything." So I took his advice, put up security cameras covering every entrance, and started keeping a record of every single... The worst incident happened about 3 months. Besides the house itself, my pride and joy, my '69 Dodge Dart, a classic muscle, metallic green, running the original 300. I'd spent 2 years restoring that car. Countless weekends, late nights in the garage, thousands of dollars in parts. I did most of the work myself, from rebuilding the carburetor to redoing the upholstery. That car represented thousands of hours of my life. I was in the kitchen when I heard this strange scraping sound coming from the driveway, looked out the window and saw Cole, Derek's 10-year-old, deliberately dragging a rock along the side of my Dart, carving a deep scratch from the headlight all the way to the taillight. I bolted outside, blood boiling. "What the hell are you doing?" I shouted. The kid looked up at me with that same smug little smile his dad always wears. "It's just a stupid old car," he said, still holding the rock. I dropped it. I grabbed the rock out of his hand and threw it across the yard, then shoved him. Not hard, but enough that he landed on his backside, looking stunned. "Get the hell away from my car," I yelled through clenched. The kid started wailing like I'd broken his arm. Derek and Vanessa came running, followed by my parents, who'd apparently been inside the whole time. "What is wrong with you?" Vanessa screamed, scooping Cole up. "He's just a child." "Your child just caused $3,000 in damage to my car," I said, pointing at the deep gouge cutting through the paint down to the metal. Derek stepped up, chest puffed out. "It's just a car. He didn't mean anything by it." "Are you blind? He did it on purpose." Then my dad put his hand on my shoulder, that same patronizing gesture he's always used, and said, "Son, you need to calm down. Kids make mistakes. You can't put possessions above family." I shook his hand right off my shoulder. "That's exactly the problem with this family. Your golden boy and his kid get to break whatever they want, and I'm supposed to just eat it." "He's 10 years old," my mother said, looking appalled. "You shoved a child to the ground." "I shoved a vandal who was wrecking my property," I corrected. "And where were all of you while he was doing it?" "Sitting inside, plotting how to take my..." Aunt Diane, who'd apparently also been invited to this little ambush, piped up from the porch. "This is exactly why you're not ready for real responsibility. You can't even keep your temper in check around children." The whole family closed ranks right there, all of them staring me down like I was some kind of criminal. Not one, not a single one of them, said a word about what Cole had actually or offered to cover the repair. Instead, I got another hour of lectures about my anger problem and how materialistic I was being. Once they finally cleared out, I stood there in the driveway, running my fingers over that scratch in the Dart. 2 years of work, wrecked in a few seconds by a kid who knew exactly what he was doing. And somehow I was the villain of the story. I wasn't about to just let it go, though. Next morning, I called Derek directly. "I want $3,500 for the damage to my car. Professional restoration's gonna run at least that much." Derek laughed at me. "You're kidding, right? It's a scratch. Buff it out." This isn't a negotiation. Either you pay for what your kid did, or I file a police report for vandalism and put in an insurance claim naming Cole. He's a minor, you idiot. Nothing's gonna happen to him. Actually, as his parent, you're legally on the hook for damage he causes, and I've got security footage of him doing it on purpose. Silence for a second. I'll give you 500. That's more than generous. 3,500, or I file today. Your choice. He hung up on me. 3 hours later, I filed a police report for vandalism and an insurance claim, naming Cole directly and documenting that Derek and Vanessa had flat out refused to pay for the damage. I threw in statements about the ongoing harassment and trespassing too. The officer taking my report looked skeptical at first, until I pulled out photos of the damage and the text exchange with Derek. Family disputes get messy, he told me, but property damage is still property damage. 2 days later, I got a text from Derek. Got your little report. Good luck finding a cop who actually cares about your family drama. You're embarrassing yourself. I knew right then this wasn't close to over. About 4 months on my original quest for payment, Derek turned up again, this time with a card from my... Inside was some sappy line about family legacy, and underneath it, a crude house sketched right in under Derek's name. A sticky note on top read, "Just sign the papers. It's what's best for everyone." I ripped it to shreds right in front. "Get off my property." Derek's face went, "You're making this way harder than it needs to be. We're trying to be reasonable here." "There's nothing reasonable about trying to steal my house. It's not stealing when it's family," he said, like that actually made sense. "Think about my kids," he added. "I am thinking about your kids. I'm thinking they shouldn't grow up with parents who teach them it's fine to take what isn't theirs." He tried shoving past me into the house, but I blocked the doorway. "Move," he said, trying to sound tough. "Make me," I told him. For a second, I honestly thought he might swing at me, his hands balled into fists, his face going from red to purple. But then he spun around and stormed off, yelling that I'd regret this. After that, things stopped being just persistent and turned outright hostile. My whole family closed ranks against me. I was officially the black sheep now for having the nerve to keep what was mine. My parents quit calling altogether. The family group chat went dead silent whenever I posted in it. Holiday plans started happening without me, and the gossip mill kicked into overdrive. I heard through a cousin that my parents were telling everyone I was mentally unstable and making bad decisions. The only messages I still got directly were from Derek, and by this point he wasn't even trying to be subtle. "You're making a huge mistake," he texted one night. "We can do this the easy way or the hard way." I didn't bother responding, just added it to the growing pile of evidence I was building. Meanwhile, the incidents around my house kept coming, and they kept getting worse. Somebody smashed my mailbox. My garden got trampled flat. My front door got egged twice. I found my security cameras had been physically turned away from their normal angle. Every single time, I filed a police report, building up a paper trail. By the third visit, the officers already knew my face, but not much ever came of it. I kept getting emails back that just said, "investigation pending," or "insufficient evidence to proceed." The system moved slow, moved at all. After a couple weeks of one of the officers me aside. "Look, man, I get what's going on here. Family disputes are ugly, but we've got limited manpower and a smashed mailbox just isn't going to be top of the list. So, I'm just supposed to sit here and let them trash my property?" I asked him. He gave me this knowing document everything. Get better cameras, the kind they can't reach or mess with. And honestly, you might want to look into civil options too. Restraining orders, lawsuits, hit them where it actually hurts. Solid advice, honestly. Next day, I upgraded to cameras mounted high up on the out of reach of anyone without a ladder, with battery backup in case somebody cut my power. Installed a steel mailbox set in concrete. Threw in motion sensors that would ping my phone the second anyone stepped foot on the property. One evening I got home and found Derek's kids on bikes, tearing across my lawn, digging deep ruts into grass I'd just reseeded. Vanessa was parked across the street in her SUV, clearly watching them the whole time, doing absolutely nothing about it. I walked over to her window. "Get your kids off my property, now." She barely glanced up from her phone. "They're just playing. It's not that big a deal." "It is a big deal. It's trespassing, and you know it." She rolled her eyes at me. "God, you're so dramatic. This is exactly why everyone thinks you're unstable." I pulled out my phone and hit record. "I'm asking you one more time to get your children off my property." Something about that camera flipped a switch in her. She called the kids over with this fake sugary voice, then shot me a glare. "Derek's right about you. You're going to regret this." That night I called Marcus. "I think there's something deeper going on. This isn't normal, even for my family," he said. "My cousin works over at the county records office. Let me see what I can dig up on your parents' property." While I waited on Marcus, I started poking around myself. Checked Derek's social media, and something jumped out at me. For a guy who supposedly had everything going great, there were these small cracks showing. That family vacation Vanessa had been posting about for months vanished off her Instagram. Derek's business page hadn't had a single update in weeks, and their older kid, who they used to brag about being in private school, was suddenly enrolled in public school instead. I also remembered how vague Derek had always gotten whenever anyone asked about his construction business. He'd throw out these generic lines about expansion and projects on the horizon, but I'd never actually seen proof any of it existed. None of it was adding up. Sure, Derek had always been entitled, but this was different. This wasn't entitlement, this was desperation. 2 weeks later, I got a strange call from my bank. Their mortgage department wanted to verify some detail on a recent application that listed my property. I haven't applied for anything, I told the woman. We've got a refinance application here with your property listed as secondary collateral. That's not possible. I haven't refinanced a thing. A pause on the line. The application came in from Walter and Carol Bennett, my parents. My stomach just dropped. They don't own that house. I do. That's exactly what our verification flagged, she said. The documentation submitted doesn't line up with our record. I asked what exactly they'd submitted. I can't get into all the specifics, but it looks like they tried to fold your property into some kind of family trust. Our process caught the mismatch. The second I hung up, I called Marcus, and he came straight over with a folder full of documents his cousin had pulled. What was in there changed everything. The family estate, the legacy my parents wouldn't shut up about, was mortgaged to the hilt, not once, 3 separate times over the past decade, and every single refinance lined up perfectly, with cash flowing straight into Derek's failed business venture. His construction company had folded 2 years back. His real estate investment group dissolved after some lawsuit nobody in the family ever mentioned. His sports bar shut its doors within 8 months of opening. Every one of those failures had been quietly papered over by my parents, pulling more equity. There's more, Marcus, pointing to another stack. They're 6 months behind on payment. The banks already started foreclosure, and suddenly everything clicked into place. This was never a family tradition or legacy. They needed my house to bail themselves out of a financial hole they'd dug for themselves, propping up Derek's failures over and over. Digging further through county records and public loan filings, we found something even uglier. My parents had recently tried taking out a new loan using falsified paperwork, claiming they owned my house as a secondary property. The bank's own verification process caught it, but they'd tried anyway. Here's how they pulled it off, Marcus said, tapping on a notarized document. They created a fake family trust, backdated 3 years, listing every family property, including your address, even though you never owned it back. They backdated the whole thing and forged what looked like my signature, listing me as trustee. Then they tried to file a quitclaim deed transferring their portion of my house over, using it as loan collateral. The fraud was right there in black and white. My address, my property details, but with their names swapped in on the actual loan application. And there was Vanessa's signature too, right there as a witness on several of the papers. She wasn't just standing on the sideline, she was in on it. Reading through all that paperwork made me physically sick, not just from the betrayal, but from how sloppy the whole thing was. Did they actually think a bank wouldn't verify who owned the property? Did they think I'd never noticed my house getting used as their collateral? The desperation practically leaked off the page. With all that evidence in hand, I found a lawyer who specialized in real estate fraud. She met with me at her office the following week and went through my entire binder, 3 inches thick by that. Photos, texts, emails, property records, loan paperwork, police report, all of it. Honestly, this is pretty cut and dried, she told me. She'd gone through everything. What they attempted here is loan fraud, identity theft, and document forgery. You've got options. What would you recommend? She leaned back. Well, the nuclear option is pressing criminal charges. They'd be looking at real jail time for the forgery and fraud. Or the civil route, restraining orders against everyone involved, followed by a lawsuit for damages and attempted theft of property. Or, she added, if you want to keep this more contained, you could use it as leverage, threaten legal action unless they agree to certain terms, like leaving you and your property alone for good. I sat with that for a minute. As furious as I was, the thought of my own parents going to prison didn't sit right with me. Not because they hadn't earned it, but because it would blow up the whole family for years to come. And I just wanted this finished, not dragged out. Let's prep everything. Draft the paperwork for both the criminal charges and the civil, but hold off filing either. I want to try one more thing first. Next time Derek showed up unannounced, my phone pinged before he even made it to the front door. I had it open, or he could knock. Trespassing again, Derek? Bold move, considering I've already got a stack of police reports your name on them. He tried to push past me. We need to talk. I stood my ground. No, we really don't. Everything goes through my lawyer from now on. Lawyer? Don't be ridiculous. This is family business. Cut the crap. Family? My ass. You tried to steal my house and my identity. And by the way, that camera's recording this whole For the first time, I actually saw fear cross his face. He turned around and headed back to his car without another word. Next day, I had my lawyer fire off formal cease and desist letters to my parents, Derek, Vanessa, and Aunt Deanne. laying out the evidence we'd gathered and warning that any more contact or trespassing would trigger immediate legal action. The response came fast. My mum called me in tears, insisting they'd never meant any harm. My dad sent this blustery email about how I was overreacting. Derek didn't reach out directly, but a cousin told me he was going around saying I'd lost my was inventing lies about. Notice I'm not one of them, and I'd the fraud. 2 days after that, a group family meet, building out property, harassment, the vandalism, every I showed up Sunday with Marcus parked down the street in his car, just in case I needed backup. The whole family had turned out. My parents, Derek and Vanessa with their kids, Aunt Diane, and a couple of cousins who'd clearly been brought along as reinforcements. My dad kicked things off with his usual speech about family unity and respect. Then Mum chimed in, all tears, about how I was the one tearing this family apart with my selfishness. I let them finish. Then I set my thick binder down on the table. I know about the mortgages, I said, calm as anything. I know about the loan fraud attempt using my property. I know about the foreclosure. I know everything. The room went dead silent. Derek's face went white. My mother stopped mid-sob. I got a call from the bank, went on. They're very interested in those falsified loan applications listing my property as collateral. My dad tried to grab control of the room. This is all just a misunderstanding. 3 mortgages to fund Derek's failed businesses isn't a misunderstanding. I cut him off. Forging documents to secure a loan against my house isn't a misunderstanding either. It's fraud. Derek shot up out of his chair, pointing at you ungrateful little... Sit down, I said, without even raising my voice. I'm not finished. I've already filed a police report over the vandalism to my car. I've documented every trespass, every threat, every intrusion. I've got a paper trail a mile long, and I'm fully prepared to press charges on all of it. The doorbell rang right in the middle of my speech. My dad looked relieved for the interruption, until the door opened and Uncle Gerald walked. My dad's own brother, a guy who'd stayed out of the family drama for years, looked grim as hell. Sorry I'm late, then turned his eyes straight to Derek. Got your message about needing more money. Figured it'd be better to hash it out here. Derek's eyes went wide. Uncle Rob, this really isn't the time. I think it's exactly the right time, Uncle Gerald said, cutting him. I've loaned you $85,000 over the last 4 years. Money you swore was going into your business. Money you promised you'd pay back. Now I find out you've been borrowing from half a dozen other people too, including trying to use your own brother's house as collateral without him even knowing. The room exploded into noise. My parents tried talking over him, but Uncle Gerald just raised his voice louder. I've stayed quiet about this way too long. Your precious golden boy here has been running a one-man Ponzi scheme through this entire family for years. I kept my mouth shut because your father begged me, said it'd destroy the family if it ever came. But enough is enough. He turned to me. I should have warned you about all this years ago. Derek was sputtering, trying to grab back control. Uncle Rob's exaggerating. I've had some cash flow issues, that's all. You've had cash flow issues for a solid decade, Uncle Gerald cut. You've never paid a single dime back to anyone in this family. Your businesses fail because you funnel all the money straight into your own accounts. I've seen the records myself. My mother had gone ghost white, her eyes darting back and forth between Derek and Uncle Gerald like she was watching a tennis match. I turned back to face my parents. I'm giving you 2 options. Option 1, I file formal charges. Loan fraud, identity theft, attempted property theft, criminal vandalism, harassment, all of it. The bank freezes every account while they investigate. The house goes into immediate foreclosure. Derek and Dad are both looking at real criminal charges. Aunt Diane gasped. Vanessa burst into tears. Option 2, all of you completely. No call, no visits, no text, no more speeches about family tradition or demand. My house stays mine, and every one of you stays away from it, and from me, permanently. You can't just cut off your own family, my mother said, though her voice had lost that manipulative edge it always had. Watch me, I said. You've got until tomorrow to decide. If I don't hear that you've picked option 2, I'll assume you've picked option 1. I stood up to leave. Derek stepped into my path. You think you're so smart, he hissed. You've always been jealous of me. I actually laughed. Jealous of what? Your failed businesses? Your mountain of debt? The fact you can't support your own family without mommy and daddy bailing you out constantly? Move. As I reached the door, my dad called out, Son, please, we can work this out. I turned back to him. You had years to work it, and every single time you chose Derek. Now I'm choosing myself. Uncle Gerald followed me outside. I'm filing my own claim against Derek, he said quietly. I've got cancelled checks, promissory notes, everything documented. Should have done this years ago. Why didn't you? I asked. Family loyalty, he said, with a bitter little laugh. Stupidest reason in the world to let somebody rob you blind. As we headed to our cars, he handed me a folder. Copies of every loan I ever gave Derek, dates and all, along with his promises to pay it back. Use them if you need to. Thanks for showing up today, I told him. Next morning, I got a text from my mother. We choose option 2. Well, they did. But I'd already made my choice. Option 1. I didn't even respond. Instead, I called my lawyer and had her start filing everything. Documentation of the fraud attempt with the bank, a civil claim against Derek and Vanessa for the damage to my car, and a restraining order request against the whole immediate family. You sure you want to go through with all of this? My lawyer asked. They've agreed to your terms. They've agreed to things before, I told her. I'm not taking any chances this time. File it all. After that, things went quiet for a stretch. I kept checking the mailbox for court dates or filing responses, but the legal system moves at whatever pace it feels like. Weeks turned into months. Life kept going. I threw myself into work, took on extra projects, built a reputation as the guy who could handle the problems nobody else wanted to touch. The promotion I'd been chasing for 2 years finally landed. Senior architect, 20% salary bump, plus stock option. My boss credited it to how methodically I handled complex problems. If only he knew how much practice I'd gotten. I also poured energy into the house, finishing up all the renovations I'd been planning. New roof, updated plumbing, smart home features throughout. The house was turning into exactly what I'd pictured in my head. 4 months after that big blow-up, a plain manila envelope showed up in my mail. Inside was a judgment for the car damage. $3,500 plus $800 in legal fees. Derek and Vanessa were ordered to pay it, but the judgment didn't come with any real way to it. Actually collecting the money was going to be its own fight. Around that same time, word got around the family grapevine that Uncle Gerald had won his case against Derek too. An $85,000 judgment, plus interest and legal. Derek had apparently tried arguing the money was a gift, but Uncle Gerald's paperwork was too thorough to let that fly. My cousin Miles told me Derek showed up to court basically unprepared, expecting the family name to bail him out like it always had. It didn't. I kept hearing through the grapevine how things were unraveling. Derek's latest business venture shut down quietly. No big bankruptcy, just a closed sign in the window. Vanessa lost her job at the real estate firm too, not through any public scandal. Just a vague LinkedIn post about seeking new opportunity. Word was somebody had tipped off her boss about the fraud attempt and she got quietly pushed out to avoid any association with mortgage impropriety. My parents started dodging calls from family members they owed money to. They stopped showing up at the country club. Their cars vanished, replaced with much older ones. The foreclosure went through without any drama. Just a listing on the county, then a realtor's sign staked in their yard. My restraining order finally got granted to 2 rescheduled hearings and a mountain of paperwork. The official notice showed up. It felt oddly just a piece of paper saying they legally had to stay 500 feet away from me and my property. 6 months after that confrontation, I got a voicemail from Derek. His voice sounded small, none of his usual swagger in it. Hey, it's me. I know you probably don't want to, but things are really tight right now. We're staying with Vanessa's parents and it's not going great. The kids are struggling. I was wondering if maybe we could work something out. I deleted it without answering. The bank formally charged my parents with attempted loan fraud. They avoided prison but ended up with probation and steep fines. Their reputation, the thing they had always cared about more than anything, was in ruins. I ran in my mother at the grocery at 6 months. She looked 10 years older, wearing clothes I didn't recognize. She started walking toward me, then stopped her, remembering the restraining. Son, we need help. Across the aisle. We've got nowhere to go. I just looked at her. We're family. Like that explained everything. No, we're not. You've got no. Repeated it. After making me fight for every single thing my whole life, after watching me work 3 jobs just to put myself through college while you paid for Derek's tuition, after trying to steal the one thing I actually built for myself, now you want me to bail you out? Her face hardened. After everything we did for you? I laughed, right in her face. Stop. Don't you dare claim you did anything. You gave me nothing but grief my entire life. Wow, she said. I didn't know you'd turn this cold. Goodbye, Mum. I watched her walk off and felt absolutely nothing. My last run-in with Derek happened about 9 months after everything blew up. He showed up at my office, somehow having tracked down where I worked. Security called up to warn me some guy claiming to be my brother was downstairs causing a scene. I went down and barely recognized him. That confident swagger was gone, replaced by this defeated slump, though the entitlement was still lurking right under the surface. 5 minutes, he said the second he saw me. Just give me 5 minutes. I pointed at the security guard. Restraining order says 500 feet. You're standing about 15. Want to add a violation to your record? I'm trying to make things right, he insisted. We're brothers. We share DNA. That's it. That's the whole connection. Mom and Dad are losing everything, he said, his voice cracking. They're gonna be out on the street soon. So? Jesus, man. Have some heart. They're our parents. I just stared at him. Funny how family only matters to you when you need something from them. You didn't care about family when your kid was vandalizing my car, or when you were trying to steal my house, or when you were forging documents with my name on them. I made mistakes, okay? I admit it, but they're going to lose everything. They already did, I said. The second they chose to back you instead of treating us equally. The second they mortgaged their whole future to cover your failures. He actually had the nerve to look offended. So that's what this is about? You're punishing them because you think they loved me? No, I said. I'm protecting myself from who tried to steal from me. It's really that simple. Security walked him out while he shouted back over his shoulder, "You'll regret this. Family's all you've got in the end." I walked back into my office and shut the door, turning that line over in my head. Family is all you have in the end. Maybe that's true for some people. It wasn't true for me. I never heard from any of them again after that. The months that followed were quiet and honestly pretty good. I got another promotion at work, finished up the last of the house renovation, and started seeing someone who actually respected boundary. On weekends, I'd take the dart out, let that engine roar like it was meant to. Sometimes Marcus would ride along, sometimes Uncle Gerald, and that's the thing I learned through all of it. Family was never really about blood. It's about respect. The people who tried to take what was mine weren't family. They were just thieves who happened to share my last name. My house, my car, my life. I earned every bit of it. Nobody gets to take that away from me.